What kind of person mocks a disabled teenager in a courtroom, only to realize they're insulting the judge's own granddaughter? Let me tell you, the look on Margaret Caldwell's face when that truth hit her was like watching a house of cards collapse in slow motion. I'm Laura Bennett, and until 6 months ago, I thought moving to Willow Lake Estates was the perfect choice for my daughter, Sophie. As a civil rights lawyer who fights discrimination for alleviating, I should have seen the red flags. But the neighborhood screamed, dream home, gorgeous lake views, top-notch schools with accessibility programs, and a quick commute to my Boston law firm. What the glossy real estate flyers didn't mention was Margaret Caldwell, the HOA president who treated her rulebook like it was carved in stone by some higher power. Let's back up. My daughter Sophie is a 16-year-old force of nature. 2 years ago, a skiing accident left her paralyzed from the waist down. Before that, she was a competitive skier, gunning for the Olympics, training every weekend on Vermont's toughest slopes. Her coaches swore she had the grit to go all the way. But during a qualifying run for the Junior Nationals, a freak gust of wind threw her off a jump. One miscalculation, and our world turned upside down. I'll never forget the call from her coach, the desperate drive to the hospital, or the neurosurgeon's gut punch words, spinal cord injury at T10. Complete paralysis. Permanent. For months, Sophie barely spoke. Her room, lined with skiing trophies, became a shrine to a life she couldn't face. The VY brand girl who'd light up any room was gone, replaced by a quiet stranger staring out her window. Then, out of nowhere, a sports photographer who'd been following her Olympic journey showed up at rehab. Instead of pitying her, he handed her a camera and said, "Your VYU's different now. Show it." That camera became her lifeline. She started snapping photos first from her hospital window, then the rehab garden, and soon the world as she navigated it in her wheelchair. Sophie had a gift for capturing details others missed, angles that made you see things anew. After grueling rehab, she poured her fierce spirit into photography and debate, trading ski slopes for a new kind of challenge. When my husband, Tom, died of pancreatic cancer 5 years ago, I promised him I'd give Sophie every chance to shine, not just survive. Tom was my rock, my college sweetheart. We'd planned a long life together, but cancer doesn't care about plans. 6 months after his stage 4 diagnosis, he was gone, leaving me to raise our 11-year-old alone. Moving to Willow Lake Estates was part of that promise, a fresh start in a place built for Sophie's needs. The house was a dream, wide doorways, an open layout, and a backyard sloping to the lake, perfect for her photography. Enter Margaret Caldwell, the HOA's iron-fisted queen. In her 60s, with flawless silver hair and a string of pearls she probably slept in, Margaret carried herself like royalty. Her family had helped develop Willow Lake 30 years ago, and she ruled it like her personal empire. I met her at a welcome reception for new residents, where she swept over, champagne in hand, with a smile that didn't touch her eyes. "Laura Bennett, our new lawyer," she purred, shaking my hand. "We're thrilled to have such talent in our community. I've read about your work with the Equality Project." Her research on me was unsettling, but I brushed it off. "Thanks," I said. "We're excited to be here." Her gaze slid to Sophie, who was wheeling around the room. A shadow crossed Margaret's face, her smile tightened, her eyes narrowed. "I wasn't aware you had a daughter with special needs," she said, lingering on the phrase like it tasted bad. Warning bells rang, but I chalked it up to her age, maybe old-school awkwardness about disability. "This is Sophie," I said, calling her over. Sophie rolled up, all confidence, and extended her hand. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Caldwell. Mom says you've run this place forever?" Margaret's handshake was quick, almost recoiling. 3 decades of upholding Willow Lake standards," she said, eyeing Sophie's wheelchair. "I hope you'll find suitable active ties. Our tennis courts and trails are quite popular." Sophie, used to subtle slights, smiled. "I'm more into the lake. Great for my photography." Margaret nodded, distracted, then turned to me. "Do re-VYEW the community guidelines, Ms. Bennett," We're particular about property appearances. Her cryptic tone left it chill, and I soon learned why. Trouble started fast. We needed a wheelchair ramp for our front door, so I submitted plans to the HOA's Architectural Committee ADA compliant, designed to blend with the house. 2 weeks later, a denial letter arrived. The ramp would disrupt the neighborhood's historic entryway aesthetic. They suggested a back entrance instead. I appealed, pointing out that forcing Sophie to use a side door was discriminatory and impractical. After weeks of pushback, they approved a narrower, costlier ramp with absurd material restrictions. Later, a committee member leaked that Margaret had strong-armed the decision, ranting, "We can't have these ugly ramps ruining our streets. Next, they'll demand all sorts of tacky accommodations." Then came the pool lift fight. Our therapy pool was a lifeline for Sophie's physical rehab, but the lift, hidden from VYEW, somehow caught Margaret's attention. She showed up at our door one Saturday, all fake concern. "Ms. Bennett, I've had reports of unapproved equipment." I corrected her. "It's Miss," and explained the lift's medical necessity. Her smile didn't budge. "Community guidelines require approval for pool equipment. The fines do law $250 a day, but I'll hold off if you remove it by Monday." I stood firm. "The lift stays. Federal law protects our right to accessibility modifications." Her eyes narrowed. "We know the law, Ms. Bennett. You might want to reread the covenants you signed. Some families with special needs find communities with looser rules a better fit." It was a veiled threat to leave, and it wasn't the last. The harassment ramped up. Violation notices piled in, Sophie's specialized van in the driveway, commercial vehicles prohibited, her sports wheelchair on the porch. Recreation equipment must be hidden, even the blue accessible parking space by our garage. Non-standard paint. Fines skyrocketed, and my legal responses citing ADA and Fair Housing Act protections hit a brick wall. As a lawyer, I saw the tactic wear us down until we quit. Meanwhile, neighbors parked boats or painted doors bright colors without a peep. Only we were under the microscope. Sophie, bless her, didn't flinch. She wheeled through the neighborhood, joined the school newspaper, and started a photography project exposing accessibility barriers, stairs without ramps, narrow paths. "I'm making an exhibit," she told me, scrolling through her shots. "I want people to see my world." Her courage made me proud, but it seemed to enrage Margaret. I caught her watching Sophie from her car, her face twisted with disdain, like Sophie's existence offended her. The breaking point came when the community clubhouse's accessibility features temporary ramps, an accessible restroom were removed the day before Sophie's 16th birthday party. We'd booked the space weeks earlier, confirming everything. When we arrived, it was gone. The attendant muttered, "Mrs. Caldwell said those weren't approved permanently." Sophie hid her hurt. "It's fine, Mom. We'll do it at home." But it wasn't fine. Seeing my daughter swallow another insult snapped something in me. "No," I said. "This stops now." I enlisted my colleague Rachel Nguyen, a housing discrimination expert, to sue the HOA. I could have taken the case, but I wanted an impartial front. Rachel reviewed our EVY Denke and laughed grimly. "They've documented their own violations. It's like they think the law doesn't apply." I nodded. "Margaret acts like it's 1985. When the HOA got served, Margaret hired James Thornton, a sharp real estate attorney and my old Harvard Law classmate. I ran into him at the courthouse. "Laura," he said, smirking, "I didn't know it was you until I signed on." I teased, "You can still bail, James. You know we're right." He sighed. "I've tried explaining the law to Mrs. Caldwell. She's Con V. Wine said she's untouchable, claims she's got pull with the judges." I raised an eyebrow. "That's not how courts work." He hesitated. "Just brace Sophie. Margaret gets nasty when cornered." The preliminary hearing was set, and Rachel whispered as we arrived, "We got Judge Catherine Bennett." I grinned. "Did we?" Rachel looked confused. "Is that a big deal?" I leaned in. She's my mom. Rachel's eyes widened. Should we request a new judge? Conflict? I shook my head. No need. Mom and I've talked this out before. There's no rule against her presiding just because I'm related to the plaintiff. You're lead counsel, and she's a stickler for fairness. My mother, Judge Catherine, was a legend in Boston's legal circles, fierce, impartial, and private. She'd raised me to fight for justice but kept her work and family worlds separate. When I married Tom, who shared her maiden name, it helped her maintain that dvd. Few connected Judge Catherine Bennett to Laura Bennett. In court, Mom was all business, her judicial robes hiding any hint of our connection. She set deadlines and schedules without a flicker of recognition. Only as we left did she catch my eye with a tiny nod, her quiet way of saying she was proud. Outside, Margaret cornered me, her voice low and smug. Nice show, but it won't work. Judge Bennett's ruled for us before. She gets community standards. I just smiled. See you at the trial, Mrs. Caldwell. The weeks before the trial were brutal. Anonymous letters urged Sophie to find a more suitable community. Violation notices doubled. Someone yanked our side door ramp overnight. Sophie stayed strong, documenting it all with her camera and starting a blog connecting with other disabled teens. When I asked if she wanted to move, she was firm. Running won't fix this, Mom. If we go, they'll target someone else. You taught me to fight. The trial day was electric. Neighbors packed the courtroom, some secretly supportive but too scared of Margaret to speak up. Rachel laid out our case vy denke of discrimination, expert testimony. James argued the HOA's right to aesthetic standards, but it felt hollow. Then Margaret took the stand, and the room caught fire. She was defiant, interrupting Rachel, talking to Mom like they were pals, preaching about Willow Lake's elite character. Mom stayed stone-faced, but Margaret's answers grew reckless. Rachel asked, "Do your standards accommodate disabled residents?" Margaret snapped, "We make reasonable changes, but we can't let every special needs person reshape our community. It's a slippery slope." Rachel pressed, "So, a hidden pool lift or a front door ramp thing's only helping Sophie hurt the neighborhood?" Margaret's mask slipped. "What hurts is the attitude that rules don't apply because of someone's sob story. I feel for the Bennett girl, but her disability doesn't give her a free pass." The room went silent. James winced. Mom spoke, her voice calm but sharp. "Mrs. Caldwell, what do you mean by free pass?" Margaret, misreading the tone, leaned in. "Your Honor, we all face hardships, but most of us don't demand the world bend for us. These ramps, lifts, special parking theory ugly, and frankly, a wheelchair-bound teenager front and center gives the wrong impression for Willow Lake's lifestyle." Murmurs rippled. Mom's voice turned icy. "Are you saying a disabled person's visibility is a problem?" Margaret doubled down. "Willow Lake is for active families who value beauty and achievement. We've got tennis courts, a golf course, trails, things someone like that can't use. It's not biased to say some places suit certain people better." Mom set her pen down. "Mrs. Caldwell, do you know who Sophie Bennett is to me?" Margaret froze, glancing at James, who'd gone white. "I don't follow, Your Honor." Mom's eyes locked on her. "Sophie is my granddaughter. The Bennett girl you want hidden is a straight-A student, speaks 3 languages, volunteers at a children's hospital, and just won a National Photography Award. More importantly, she has the legal right to equal housing and access." The courtroom was a vacuum. Margaret's face strained, her mouth flapping soundlessly. James stood, stammering. "Your Honor, perhaps we should." Mom cut him off. "If you're suggesting recusal, Mr. Thornton, don't. No law requires it in this case. I've reviewed the ethics thoroughly." She turned to Margaret. "You may step down. I've heard enough." Margaret stumbled off the stand, her authority in tatters, avoiding Sophie's steady gaze. The trial wrapped quickly. James tried to recover, but Margaret's words hung like smoke. That afternoon, Mom ruled. The Willow Lake HOA has violat the Fair Housing Act and ADA through systemic discrimination. She ordered all our accessibility requests approved, due law $150,000 in damages, a new ADA-compliant policy, and mandatory board training. Looking at Margaret, she added, "This court strongly suggests new HOA leadership that respects all residents' rights." Leah vying the courtroom, Sophie grabbed my hand. "Thanks for fighting, Mom." I squeezed back. "Always." Mom had slipped out, but that night she brought Sophie's favorite ice cream and a new camera lens. "You both made Mark proud," she said softly. Neighbors approached us, some apologizing, others sharing their own HOA horror stories. An elderly couple fined for a handrail, a family cited for a sensory garden. Margaret had ruled by fear, and we'd broken her grip. Within a week, Margaret resigned, followed by the board. A new election brought leaders like our neighbor Lisa Wong, whose sister has cerebral palsy. They approved our modifications and formed a disability inclusion committee with Sophie as a founding member. Sophie's exhibit, Saw Unseen Obstacles showcased accessibility barriers and fixes, drawing crowds and inspiring citywide policy reviews. Margaret sold her house and fled to Cape Cod, stopping by to whine that we'd ruined a legacy. Sophie, answering the door, smiled. "You're right, Mrs. Caldwell. Your legacy wasn't reasonable, so we made it better. Be well." 6 months later, Willow Lake is reborn. The community center hosts accessibility events, homes sport sleek ramps, and the newsletter celebrates disabled residents. Property values are up, turns out, inclusion sells. Sophie's advocacy group, Access Now, thrives at school, uniting kids to tackle accessibility projects. At the Fall Festival, with wheelchair-friendly hayrides and sensory-safe zones, Sophie snapped photos of kids playing together. "Sometimes," she said, "people just need a new way to see." Watching her, I knew justice wasn't just winning in court, it was building a world where everyone belongs.